What's up, guys? Welcome back to another one, and this is going to be a breakdown for UFC Vegas 28, Rozenstruik versus Sakai. Had a nice little, well, I don't want to say nice, actually, because, I was itching for some fights, but had a 1 week layoff from UFC, but we're back at it again this weekend, thank God, and let's get right back into the action, guys. So the first fight of the night is going to be Claudio Puelles coming up against Jordan Leavitt at 155, so... Puelles is, he's 9-2, 2-1 in the UFC with 2 straight wins. But he hasn't fought since 2019. And his bread and butter is get a takedown and get to work. Everyone knows that. Literally everyone in the whole world knows that. Luckily for him, he's good at getting them. And his cardio seems pretty good, which I think is going to be important for this one. He doesn't really do that great of a job setting up takedowns. He does kind of like a lot of reaching in to get them. And it works against some guys. I don't know how well that's going to work against top-level competition. He kind of will put himself in bad positions to get to the ground. And he doesn't really care how he gets there. His striking offense and his striking defense, too, honestly, is not really great. I think he's going to be the bigger man in this match. And looking across the cage at Leavitt, he's 8-0, undefeated prospect. He has 12 straight wins if you include his amateur career. But he hasn't really been tested by anybody yet. He had a win on LFA and then Dana White's Contender Series, and then won his UFC debut, with that slam KO last fight. I think has pushed the line on this fight a little bit too wide, kind of the hype that was generated around that. He's had way less of a layoff in between fights, but he has a very similar bread and butter to Claudio here, and neither of them really want any part of striking most of the time. They just kind of want to take down. So it's kind of hard to get a read on this fight, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to pick Puelles because, A, I think the line is a little off. I feel like all the value is on him here. B, he has more experience against UFC level competition. And C, it's probably going to be a grappling battle. And Puelles is just a little bit bigger. I'm not confident in this at all. I'm not going to be betting this fight at all. So... do with that information what you will, but I am going to go with the underdog in this one. Moving on to Zalal and Sean Woodson at featherweight. So Zalal is 10-4, and he had a really hot start to his UFC career last year, but now he's found himself on the losing end of 2 straight fights. He's lost 2 straight. He's got really good footwork, good head movement, nice defense. He's got a really quick jab. And, against someone who wants to take center and move forward, sometimes he just kind of skirts around on the outside, and it just kind of looks bad to the judges, and given that a lot of his fights go the distance. Zalal is pretty much a decision fighter, and he just kind of can't afford to do that. He looks for takedowns sometimes. That's not really his game, but against the right opponent, it can work. He's very technically sound. He just doesn't have very much to threaten you with in terms of finishing. Obviously we've seen him get a lot of finishes before he broke into the UFC, but at this level he just doesn't look that live for a finish in most of his fights. I mean, people just really aren't too worried about his power, and if he does get takedowns, people aren't overly worried about getting submitted on the ground. I mean, he does have a few that he can try, but still. His bread and butter is to kind of just already be better than you and just out-volume you for 3 rounds. And so if that doesn't really work, I mean, he's kind of in trouble in my opinion. Sean Woodson is 7-1. He got a win on Contender Series, and now he's 1-1 in the UFC. His last fight was his first loss. That was to Julian Rosa. Zalal being kind of like a volume decision guy. I mean, Woodson, I feel like, has a little bit more volume than him. I think Woodson is also going to be bigger here, and he does hold a pretty solid reach advantage in this one. I think he's going to look quite a bit bigger actually inside the cage, but he is slim for anyone that is 6'2" and fights at 145 would be. But he's got some nice feints, some nice head movements. I feel like Zalal will have a slight speed advantage over him, but Woodson definitely packs more power in his shots in my opinion. He had a pretty lengthy amateur boxing career. He takes the center, he lands a ton. That's not really good news for Zalal. He lands nice combos. That left hand is pretty crispy, whether it's the jab or the cross. he's listed as an orthodox fighter, but he will switch stances and get different looks and angles. Mixes in some head kicks every now and again, and Zalal could get some takedowns here, but Woodson, was pretty tricky to get down, being so long and so wiry, and he can touch you just from so far away. So against a guy like Zalal who likes to be at distance, I feel like that's kind of in Woodson's favor with the reach advantage. So I'm gonna go with Woodson in this one. Zalal, he likes to chip away from the outside and land more volume, and I think that's kind of a good matchup for Woodson because I feel like he takes the center of the cage and just is going to put some volume on Zalal, actually. And I think the rounds will be close, but I feel like Woodson is just going to have the slight edge each time, so I'll go with Woodson there. Moving on to Marina Moroz and Manon Fiorot at 125 pounds. So Moroz is 10-3. She's 5-3 in the UFC, and she's coming off 2 straight wins right now. And she's got some real nice names on her resume. Wins over Joanne Calderwood, Mayra Bueno Silva, Sabina Mazo. She lost to Angela Hill and Carla Esparza, but those are still good fights to have under your belt. So she has the experience advantage. She's definitely been in there with better fighters. She trains an American top team. She's got an extensive boxing background, before transitioning to MMA, and she throws a lot of volume. She does have a nice jab. She mixes up her strikes pretty well. Doesn't just headhunt the whole time, and she takes what's there. Manon Fiorot is 6-1. She won her UFC debut by KO on Fight Island against Victoria Leonardo, and she looked really good in that fight. I really like the way she enters the pocket with kicks. She's got nice side kicks, nice front kicks, and she's a smart fighter with good footwork and movement. She's very aware and composed in the octagon. She's got really nice hands, sharp and fast combos, got a nice cross. And she has power in her hands. She can land nice check hooks while she's backing up. She's also, she's strong. She's definitely not afraid of the clinch. She will let her knees go in there. And ultimately, I'm going to be going with Manon Fiorot in this one. I think that Marina Moroz is pretty solid, but I just feel like Fiorot is a little better. Moroz is a good technical striker, but she doesn't really bring the same heat that Fiorot does. I feel like Fiorot is live for a finish, but I do think that Moroz is a sufficient enough step up in competition that it could go to the judges this time. So, yeah, I'll go with Manon Fiorot there. And now moving on to Alain Patrick coming up against Mason Jones at 155. And Alain Patrick is 15-3. He's 5-3 in the UFC. He's lost 2 straight now. He's 37 years old. He has a good skill base. He's had injury problems throughout the years that kind of seem like they've been taking their toll on his career and its trajectory. He throws kind of a lot of awkward and looping punches, and I feel like he kind of overcommits a little bit too much for my liking. That type of thing can end up with him getting taken down. It can end up with him getting tagged. And he really does well when he can get multiple takedowns and get control. He moves a lot. I don't know if he necessarily moves that effectively a lot of the time. He just looks pretty hittable, and his striking defense isn't really that great. And I feel like his stand-up in general is just not good enough to win a fight based off his stand-up. So, for my money, he just doesn't land enough. He misses a lot of shots, and just watching that Bobby Green fight, that just does not fill me with confidence at all. Mason Jones just took his first ever loss. He was a double champ in Cage Warriors. And, he got that loss out of his system, and hopefully he will have made adjustments coming into this one. He has a big youth advantage here. Normally, Patrick will have a reach advantage at lightweight. Not here. Topology does say that Mason Jones reaches 72 inches, but it was listed at 74 for his last UFC fight. So I feel like that obviously I'm going to use that as my measurement there. So I feel like they got the same reach. He's got pretty good boxing. I think his stand-up is better than Alain Patrick, and I don't think he'll be easy to take down if Patrick wants to try that. I don't think it's going to be easy to set that up on Jones. Jones just throws more. He throws a lot cleaner than Patrick does. I think that he will handily win the stand-up and be able to defend the takedowns enough to get by and maybe even get some of his own. I think he'll outland Patrick probably every round. Jones did lose to Mike Davis because Davis could compete with him in that stand-up as well as mix in some takedowns, and I just don't see Patrick having success like that. So I'm going to go with Mason Jones here. I just feel like Patrick hasn't been looking good lately. Really didn't like the way he looked against Bobby Green. I think Jones is just better, younger, and hungrier, so give me the Dragon in this fight. Moving on to Francisco Trinaldo and Muslim Salikhov at 170 pounds. So Trinaldo is 26-7. He's 42 years old. And honestly, man, I'm getting ready to to kind of rip into him a little bit, but he's looked pretty decent lately. I mean, there's not too much I can complain about if he's gonna win 3 straight. He did have a bad weight miss his last fight, and he's coming up to 170 here instead of fighting at lightweight. So we'll see how that works out. His hooks do have some power. It's just not really the tightest technique in the world. He's still very physically strong at 42 years old. Against Jai Herbert, he had a nice round 1. He definitely lost round 2 and then found a finish in round 3. In the fight before that against John Makdessi, he definitely lost round 1. And then round 2 and 3 were very close. He won a close decision. So, it's not like he ran away with that one or anything. I mean, Bobby Green, I thought he lost that one, honestly. On paper, it really looks like he lost. But then when you actually watch the fight, it's a little bit closer, but still, I don't know, man. That definitely wasn't. Also, Bobby Green is kind of exposing a lot of the guys on this card, right, so far. At least that's what it feels like. But, yeah, I just feel like we're starting to see Trinaldo decline a little bbit, and he's coming up against a really tough opponent here. And speaking of, speak of the devil, we have Muslim Salikhov, 17-2, 4-1 in the UFC. He's 6 years younger. I haven't exactly loved what I've been seeing from him lately. That fight against Zaleski dos Santos, I picked him, but I really wasn't overly confident once that was going to decision. He just is a little hesitant to throw. I feel like Trinaldo will probably look to land more volume in this one, but it's just like the way that Trinaldo enters into the pocket, it seems prime for Salikhov to land some hard counters on him. Salikhov does throw pretty hard. He's got pretty decent takedown defense if Trinaldo does want to try that, which he probably will at some point during the fight. But the thing that I don't like about Salikhov is he just seems to lack a real sense of urgency at times. And, he doesn't really look to get it back when he gets tagged, you know what I mean? Patience is all good and well, but I just feel like I can't trust him to turn up the heat in crunch time. But with that said, I am still going to pick Salikhov to win this one. I'm going to go with him here, but I won't have any money on either fighter. I feel like fight goes the distance or some overs could be a nice play potentially here. I'll go with Salikhov, just because I feel like he's fresher and more technical with his stand-up. He's also a more natural 170-pounder, whereas Trinaldo is coming up here. And, once again, I wouldn't really want to have money on a side for this one, but I am going to go with Salikhov for my pick. And moving on to Tanner Boser and Ilir Talifi at 265 at heavyweight. But neither of these guys will probably weigh in at 265 here. They're both a little bit lighter as far as heavyweights go. So Tanner Boser, 19-7-1. He's 3-2 in the UFC. He's coming off a loss to Arlovsky. And I kind of thought he won that fight. I guess Arlovsky did kind of land bigger shots, but Boser was a lot busier, and I don't know if the judges just weren't putting too much stock into the work he was doing to the legs in that one. But his other loss was to Cyril Gane, which isn't really I'm not going to say isn't really. I don't think it's a bad loss at all. Because I do think that Cyril Gane is one of the best prospects at heavyweight at the moment. And Boser does have pretty decent footwork and volume for heavyweight. He does try to beat the legs up a lot, which you don't really get as much at heavyweight, so I do like to see that. He's got pretty good activity level and volume, and he has power since he's a heavyweight, but I wouldn't say it's anything like top-tier power in the division. No aspect of his game really jumps off the page at me, just besides that volume and willingness to go to the leg and mix his strikes up a little bit more than other guys will in this division. And sometimes he lands a ton of volume, but it's just not any shots that really appeal to the judges, and that was kind of his issue with Andrei Arlovsky. That's not really his fault that the judges aren't taking that into consideration, but we do kind of just have to, make a mental note of that when we're breaking this one down. And looking across the cage at Talifi, who is 14-8, he's had a really long UFC career, and he is a great wrestler. I don't think he has the stand-up ability that Boser has. His striking output is really low. But I do think that he matches up pretty well against Boser in this spot. I think he's going to look to get his hands locked and get it to the mat. I don't think that Boser is going to be able to. I just don't see him being able to sweep Talifi or get up once Talifi gets top position. I think that if Talifi can get some good ground control for 2 of the 3 rounds, it's his fight to lose. So he will have to be aware of Boser's power, but he's been in there with more dangerous guys, right? Like Jan Blachowicz, Derek Lewis. even like Corey Anderson and Ryan Bader back in the day. I just feel like Talifi does have the fight IQ to execute a good plan here. And, I feel like if Talifi goes out and makes this a wrestling match, he should get the win. I do think that it's worth noting that Boser has never been taken down in his UFC career, but I do think that's going to end on Saturday night. So I'm going to be going with Talifi to get this one done. And now we got Montana De La Rosa coming up against Ariane Lipski at women's flyweight. So De La Rosa is 11-6-1, and we got a little elevation fight team versus Kings MMA action here. De La Rosa out of elevation is a good wrestler and grappler. She does rely a lot on takedowns just to outpoint her opponents to get wins. She is a bit of a choppy striker. I don't think that it's in her best interest to stand with Lipski in this fight. She's got like some winging hooks, some single jabs. She's got an overhand right, but I just feel like she won't win a stand-up fight. Obviously, she knows that. That's not going to be her plan. Because that's just not her domain. She is very physically strong, and when she gets her hands locked, she can basically just put you wherever she wants. She can hold you up against the cage, control you there. She's got good single legs, double legs, good IQ, and she knows what she has to do to win. She has the cardio to really play a takedown-heavy game for 15 minutes, and Ariane Lipski is 13-6. She had a really nice run on KSW before coming over to the UFC, and she's 2-3 in the UFC. She lost to Antonina Shevchenko most recently. She got taken down and lost by ground and pound, and that's really not a good look coming into this fight, in my opinion. Right off the bat, I feel like Lipski is a far superior striker to De La Rosa. I just like what she can do on the feet a lot better. She does have nice combos, and I feel like she was winning the striking exchanges with Antonina Shevchenko, who does have a really good Muay Thai background. But she was taken down by Antonina, and that really doesn't fill me with confidence that she can beat De La Rosa here. She starts the second round strong. Started the second round strong in that fight and was landing some strikes, but just got taken down once again. And she's been taken down in every fight she's had besides Luana Carolina, where she won by round one knee bar. And I feel like Montana De La Rosa is a lot better than Luana Carolina is. And, Molly McCann was able to get Lipski down 2 times. And if she can't stop Antonina and Molly McCann from getting her down, how's she going to deal with Montana De La Rosa? That's kind of the way I'm seeing this one. And I feel like De La Rosa is going to start each round by maybe eating a couple strikes to the face, but then just shooting a takedown and getting it. And I just don't think Lipski is going to have much resistance to offer her on the ground. So I will go with Montana De La Rosa in this one. And now moving on to Makwan Amirkhani and Kirk at 145 pounds. So Amirkhani is 16-5. He was supposed to be fighting Nate Landwehr here, but obviously that fell through, and now he's got Kirk. He's 6-3 in the UFC, coming off a loss to Edson Barbosa. And as we know, guys, he's not really much of a striker. He is an excellent grappler. He's very dangerous in those exchanges. He's also a very good wrestler. He's got a background in both freestyle and Greco-Roman. It's kind of weird sometimes because Makwan really doesn't have the striking skills to succeed at distance with most guys. But he does kind of like to be at distance sometimes because it allows him to be out of his opponent's range, and then kind of encourages his opponents to try to use kicks to reach him, which he can then kind of try to intercept and get the fight down. So in the Barboza fight, his hands were pretty low at distance and didn't really look like he had any interest in exchanging strikes, just kind of watching and waiting for an opportunity to get it down. And he does throw the occasional singular strike in these situations, but unfortunately it's not a good look to the judges when he does this, and it's kind of more him like hoping to find an opening. He's got a pretty decent right jab. He just doesn't follow it up all that much, and he pretty much never throws any kicks. Doesn't really attack the legs that much. He doesn't throw to the body that much, and he just doesn't mix his strikes up that well. And when he finally does shoot, he is very quick. His lack of activity on the outside kind of allows him to conserve energy for those shots, and he will capitalize on any kick that he can catch. And against guys that he perceives to kind of be less dangerous strikers, he doesn't really take that same cautious approach, and he will move forward. But even when he does do this, his output is still a little bit low for my liking, and just being so reliant on his grappling can make him a bit reliant on a finish just because of the toll that those exchanges can take on your cardio. We have seen him have a lot of grappling success in round one, like in that Shane Burgos fight, but it kind of left him gassed, and he's already not great on the feet with pretty low output, and that's just going to make it worse. And, Burgos' corner was saying, like, you got his number now. They know he doesn't have much standing up, and if he doesn't have the energy to just take you down and control you, he really doesn't have much for you. And against Burgos, he attempted 19 takedowns, only landed 3. He got 3 out of 10 in the first round and then didn't land another one for the rest of the fight. on like how many more attempts? It's making me do math now, like 9 more attempts or whatever. And round 2, he was outstruck 61-5. In round 3, he was outstruck 84-9, and that just can't happen, guys. I mean, Kirk is not Shane Burgos. Let's get that out of the way. I'm not trying to say that he is, but it's just a bad look anyway you slice that. And Amirkhani does routinely get outstruck in a lot of fights, so ideally for him, he gets a finish in the first or second round. He's only won 2 fights past the second round. One of them was a split decision, one of them was unanimous. And a good matchup for Amirkhani is a guy who he is just a lot better than, it seems like. When he gets these steps up in competition, he just doesn't seem to handle it that well, and he's kind of running out of those fights where he's going to be the better guy. I feel like this could be one for him right here. And he's also good against guys who aren't going to pour on a ton of volume. Rangy strikers with good cardio are kind of bad news for Amirkhani, I feel like. And Kirk is 11-4. If you watch LFA, you know this guy. He just had a nice win very recently. As the main event on LFA. He's stepping in on short notice here. He's got like that 74, 75-inch reach, something like that, similar to Edson Barbosa and Shane Burgos. His 2 recent losses are to Bruno Souza and Billy Quarantillo. And, the fight with Bruno Souza was a close split decision. He beat Quarantillo up in the first round on Contender Series. Then he kind of got tired and got dominated in round 2, and he was KO'd early in the 3rd round there. He's got good pressure. It's much easier to kind of do that on the regional scene when you're not worrying about like the power that's coming back at you, like from Barbosa or Shane Burgos, for example, if we're going to talk about guys that Amirkhani has fought. Kirk doesn't really have insane power, but I feel like he might have a little bit more than Amirkhani does. He seems like he's more willing to throw a lot of volume. He definitely has been working on his striking a lot. You can tell just from his last 2 fights that he's been putting in some work on his striking, and I think that he can and will probably get the better of Amirkhani on the feet if he comes out hungry here. And he has really slick jiu-jitsu and grappling. Like, he's a black belt. He won't be completely lost out there on the ground with Makwan, but I'm not going to sit here and say that. I feel like he has better jiu-jitsu or better grappling than Amirkhani does. And I mentioned before that Makwan is not really great after 2 rounds. And it is worth noting that Kirk lost 3 decisions and has been KO'd in the 3rd round, and that is what makes up his 4 losses that he has. So I am going to go with Amirkhani here. I was kind of hungry to fade him because I do feel like he has pretty exposable flaws in his game, but I just can't convince myself all the way that Kirk is the guy to do it. So I'm picking Amirkhani here. I'm not betting him. I feel like if you really want to make like a D-gen play on this, like Kirk by decision might be, could be live. The line, as I was breaking these fights down, was not out yet. Might be out right now. I'm not really sure, but it could be great value. Probably I'm not going to touch it. I'm not sitting here telling you guys that I think it's actually a good play, but as a D-gen play, I could see it, right? Because I'm not really sold on Amirkhani, but I'm also not really sold on the fact that Kirk is going to be the guy to beat him here. So yeah, I'll go with Makwan and Amirkhani there. And moving on to Tom Breese and Antonio Arroyo at 185 pounds. So Tom Breese is 12-3. All 3 of his losses came in the UFC, but he also picked up 5 wins in his 8 fights here. So I can't really tell how good I think he is yet. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, he's real good. Other times I feel like he's overrated, and it just feels like all 3 times he's kind of gotten that step up in competition. Omari Akhmedov, Brendan Allen, Sean Strickland, he's lost those fights. And, ideally Breese gets a first-round finish. He does have power. And he just kind of fades a little bit as the fight goes on, though. And he has some decent counter-striking. He's primarily a boxer, kind of has that boxing stance, which makes him a little bit susceptible to those calf kicks to the lead leg. But he does have a black belt, and he could grapple, but he just doesn't really do it that much. Doesn't really shoot takedowns. I don't know if I can remember a time watching Tom Breese where he's shot a takedown or gotten a takedown in the UFC, and he can be active off his back, but when he gets down there, I'm never really confident that he's going to get off his back to a dominant position or get have a get up while he's down there. And looking at Antonio Arroyo at 9-4, he lost his first 2 UFC fights, and they were to Duran Wynn and Andre Muniz. two guys who want to fight on the ground, so he is getting a different stylistic matchup here. He doesn't really have a lot of striking with his hands, but he does have a pretty diverse kick arsenal. I'll give him that. Breese will slow down kind of as the fight goes on, but Arroyo just looks even worse in the later rounds, in my opinion. And I feel like this fight will stay standing, and Arroyo is just going to fade and not really keep his activity level up. So I'm going to go with Breese here. I think that Breese has, the more effective stand-up game. I don't really see this one hitting the mat, but if it did, I feel like it'd be Breese who ends up on top. I think if Tom Breese is able to stay busier into the later rounds here, as both men probably lose a little bit of cardio as the fight goes on, I do think that Breese could maybe find a late finish or win a decision. I'm not really high on either guy in this matchup, and I'm going to stay away, but I'll go with Tom Breese for the pick. Now moving on to Duško Todorovic coming up against Gregory Rodrigues, 185 pounds. So Todorovic 10-1. He lost his last fight against Puno Soriano, and I really wasn't too impressed with him in that fight. He did look really good against Daquan Townsend, and he's got a pretty loose style, good head movement kind of to draw you in, but he'll have to be careful here. Soriano was able to tag him good 2 times and end up getting a finish in that first round of his last fight. And Rodrigues does have some power here that you need to be wary of. I feel like Todorovic is more skilled than Rodrigues is, but he could get himself into trouble here and things could go south quickly. Gregory Rodrigues, it feels like I talk about this guy on my channel all the time now just because he's been so active lately, and I did pick him to KO Al Matavao on LFA, which he did, but for his last fight for the vacant middleweight belt in LFA, I thought that Josh Fremd would get him, but Rodrigues shut me up in that one and looked good doing it. So he's clawed his way back to the UFC here, and he's still only 29 years old, so he's not out of his prime, and he does have the power and ability to do what Soriano did to Duško, but it's just, I'm not sold. Rodrigues definitely has more than enough power, and he does pour on the pressure when he notices that his opponent kind of doesn't like something or is a little bit hurt. He is pretty good at entering the pocket and finding a home for his strikes. He just fought really recently, like two weeks ago or something like that. And yeah, I'm going to go with Todorovic in this one. I'm going to take the guy who had the full camp. Hopefully he's made the appropriate adjustments coming into this fight. He'll have to watch out for the same thing he had to watch out for against Soriano. So I feel like if he just protects himself a little bit better than last time, I think that he is the better fighter of the two. But I definitely could see Rodrigues getting a flash KO here. But I am going to go with Duško, and hopefully Rodrigues doesn't make me look like an idiot twice in a row. And now we got Santiago Ponzinibbio coming up against Miguel Baeza at 170 pounds. So Ponzinibbio is 27-4, and he just got KO'd stiff in his last fight. And that was only 4 months ago, and I just feel like he's making a mistake coming back this early. It's a really tough matchup to come back to as well. Ponzinibbio is very mobile. He does mix up his strikes pretty well between the head and the legs. Doesn't really work the body all that much, but he does enough to mix it up and keep you thinking, keep you on your toes. I feel like the fight will stay standing, and Ponzinibbio does have good power. He could get the KO, but Miguel Baeza 10-0. I usually don't like betting undefeated fighters, but I am a fan of Baeza in this spot. So he's getting a pretty decent step up in competition here, but I do think that he can handle it. He's going to have to be aware of Ponzinibbio's power in this one, but he has shown in the past that he's durable. He comes in most of the time in great shape, and that really helps with his ability to recover when he gets hurt. He's a pretty tough guy to take down, and I doubt that Ponzinibbio really wants to do that anyway, so Baeza, he also likes to go to the head and the legs like Ponzi does, but in his last fight against Sato, he did a lot of good work to the body, and Baeza just has a pretty well-rounded game, and he's been really active lately. He will have a slight size advantage here. He's also going to have a 6-year youth advantage, so ultimately Ponzinibbio is just back a little bit too quickly for my liking. He had a really long layoff before getting waxed by Li Jinliang, and I don't think getting back in the cage 4 months later with a surging Miguel Baeza is really the best next step for him. He does have the ability to pull out a win, but I think this is a good spot for Miguel Baeza at a pretty agreeable price point. So yeah, give me Miguel Baeza in this one. Now moving on to Roman Dolidze coming up against Laureano Staropoli at middleweight. So Dolidze is 8-1. He just picked up his first loss. That was against Trevin Giles, and I had Trevin Giles in that one. really wasn't too confident that he got it when they were going to decision, but he ended up getting it done for me. And I'll admit that on paper it does look like Dolidze won it when I go back and look at the stats after watching it. And I think this is a better matchup for Dolidze here. He's going to have a big size advantage. Dolidze has been at 205 in the past, and he's kind of adopted the 185 division as of late. He was supposed to fight Chirico in this spot, but obviously that fell through, and Staropoli is here now. So Dolidze, I feel like takedowns and grappling could be really big for him in this fight. If he fights kind of like a similar fight to what he did against John Allen, I think it should be a W for him in this one. In that fight against John Allen, man, Chris Lee was obviously drunk or on crack or something when he was scoring that, because I just don't know how you could have scored that for Allen. Luckily, two of the other judges decided not to spike their water with vodka, and they got the decision right. So Staropoli is coming into this fight 9-3. He is coming up to 185 here. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, and that takedown defense worries me. I'm unsure about how he's going to carry the weight of 185, coming up from 170, and I'm not really sure how that's going to affect his game. But he did have a pretty bad weight miss in his last fight, so it's probably better in the long run that he's moving up to 185. His 2 UFC losses came in fights where guys were able to get him down multiple times, and I feel like Dolidze is going to be able to do that in this fight. On the feet, Staropoli, he does have a chance. I just don't see it staying there for 3 rounds. And I don't know if coming up in weight is going to affect the volume and the output of Staropoli at all, but I am going to pick Dolidze in this one. I feel like Roman Dolidze is going to be able to use his big size advantage in this fight. I think that his grappling will be a lot better and will allow him to have a lot of control in this fight, and I do believe he's going to get the win, so I'll go with Roman Dolidze in this one. Now, we're already at the co-main event, and we got Walt Harris against Marcin Tybura at heavyweight. So Walt Harris is 13-9. He's lost 2 straight. Really have not been impressed with him lately, to be completely honest. This is definitely a step down in competition here, though, so that could potentially be good for him. Harris just hasn't really looked that good lately. He's almost 38 at this point. His cardio isn't great, and he just really doesn't look good after the first round in a lot of his fights, and that just really raises a red flag for me more than anything else that I could say. And he's definitely live for a first round finish, but if he doesn't get it, I really don't like his chances to win this fight. And Marcin Tybura at 21-6 also hasn't really wowed me lately, but he has won 4 straight fights, so what do I know? He comes in a little bit square at times. He does have some nice combos, but he can get backed up a little bit. He does have pretty good volume, and he does mix up his striking pretty well. He's got a good use of kicks, compared to a lot of other guys in the weight class. He's a pretty crafty grappler as well, and, he's able to get a lot of guys down. He's able to get most guys down, and I feel like he's going to have a lot better cardio in this one. He can go for 15 minutes, so that's, the main factor in me picking Tybura here. I feel like if Tybura can survive round 1, he should win. I feel like his cardio is better. I feel like he's going to stay a little busier than Harris, and Harris just drops off too much after the first round for me to pick him. And this is a potential live bet spot, I feel like, for Tybura. If Harris does perform well in the first round and doesn't find a finish, I feel like Tybura definitely can edge out those next 2. But, yeah, I don't know. Walt Harris, his back's against the wall in this one. He's not on a good streak right now. He's getting older, so he's fighting for a spot on the roster right now for sure, so that might kind of light a fire under him, but it's just not enough for me to pick him over Marcin Tybura in this one, so I'm going to stick with Marcin Tybura. Now we got the main event, Jairzinho Rozenstruik coming up against Augusto Sakai at heavyweight. So Rozenstruik is 11-2, and he just lost to Ciro Gane in a pretty boring fight. Not Ciro Gane's fault at all. He went out there and did what he had to do. Jairzinho Rozenstruik just wouldn't throw anything for the whole fight. I mean, his volume was just unbelievably low. He has a really great kickboxing background, but it's just like he waits way too much and doesn't engage. He's extremely finish reliant. I feel like there's no way he could win a decision. There was absolutely no way he was going to win that decision against Ciro Gane. He was just praying for the finish, right? he has good cardio, but it's like I can't tell if that's because he just never throws any strikes or not. Um, and it's like he's just way too happy to walk backwards the entire time, and I hate that. So just from that right there, you probably understand which way I'm leaning in this one. Augusto Sakai is 15-2-1. His last fight against Alistair Overeem was the first time that he was finished, I believe. He throws way more volume than Rozenstruik does. He's actually a pretty good striker. He was backing up Overeem a lot, and you don't even have to do that much to back up Rozenstruik because he does it anyway. He backs himself up. So, I mean, like, if he can just back Rozenstruik up and outland him for 5 rounds, I have no idea how Rozenstruik is going to win this, aside from, like, a flash KO. I mean, Sakai has a pretty good chin to absorb some strikes now and then, on the odd occasion that Rozenstruik actually might throw some. And I feel like this fight is going to be all striking, most likely. I really don't see it hitting the mat. And I just trust Augusto Sakai way more to actually fight here. Like, could Rozenstruik get a knockout? Yeah, 100% he could. I wouldn't be crazy surprised to see him do that, to pull out like some cheesy knockout in the 5th round, but it's just like, I don't know, I just can't trust Rozenstruik at all. I feel like he's going to back up the whole time, not throw anything, and literally watch himself lose a decision in 3rd person. Like, I mean, I can't be confident in him at all, and I really can't pick him. Like, I honestly feel like this fight is going the full 5 rounds, and I'll never pick Jairzinho Rozenstruik to win a decision. So give me Augusto Sakai here in this fight. And yeah, I'm looking at the overs too. I got some money on over 3.5. It was paying me plus 140. I really liked that one. And yeah, I'll go with Augusto Sakai in this one because I just can't trust Jairzinho Rozenstruik, guys, unfortunately. Because I do like him, but it's just like I can't trust him at this point. So give me Augusto Sakai, and those are going to be my picks for the event this Saturday. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Let me know in the comments who you're betting on for this one. Have a great day, and best of luck this weekend. I'll catch you on the next one.